Welcome to the new video of NeuroPhilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The endless search for the better self. Have you ever wondered why, despite all your efforts, the feeling of being incomplete never truly disappears? You meditate, you journal, you read self-help books stacked high on your bedside table. You follow motivational speakers, take courses, attend therapy sessions, and chase every new technique that promises healing. And yet, when the lights are off at night and silence fills the room, there is still that quiet, gnawing sense that something is wrong with you. You tell yourself, maybe I haven't done enough. Maybe I should have meditated longer. Maybe I should have gone deeper in therapy. Maybe my productivity isn't where it should be. The inner critic whispers constantly, if only you tried harder, if only you were stronger, if only you were better, then you would finally be whole. But what if this voice, the one that insists you must fix yourself, is the very reason you suffer? Alan Watts, one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century, would say something radical: stop trying to fix yourself. Not because pain or confusion don't exist within you, but because the very idea that you are broken is an illusion. An illusion carefully shaped by culture, reinforced by self-help industries, and deeply rooted in the Western mind's obsession with ideals. The illusion of an ideal self. From an early age, we are conditioned to believe that there exists a flawless version of ourselves somewhere out there. A self free of trauma, free of anger, free of fear. A self that is calm, productive, enlightened, and perfectly at peace. Everything in life is presented as a journey toward that ideal. Every uncomfortable feeling, every restless thought, every sign of imperfection seems like proof that you haven't arrived yet. And so, you keep running. You run after goals, affirmations, rituals, and milestones. You tell yourself that one day, maybe after the next promotion, maybe after the next retreat, maybe after the next big achievement, you will finally feel complete. But the cruel truth is that the ideal doesn't exist. It never did. It is a mirage, always shifting further away the closer you try to get. What's understood, something that few coaches or therapists dare to say aloud: this pursuit of the better you is not healing, it is self-denial. It is the subtle message that who you are right now is unacceptable, that your worth is conditional, that you must earn your right to be at peace. And the more you chase that phantom version of yourself, the more alienated you become from the only self you truly have, the one that exists right now. The business of fixing yourself. Entire industries thrive on this dissatisfaction. The shelves of bookstores are lined with promises of transformation. Social media influencers project curated lives of eternal balance and happiness. Therapists, gurus, and productivity coaches, even when well-meaning, often reinforce the same message: you are not enough as you are. The result is a culture addicted to self-improvement. We wear our spiritual practices like makeup. We disguise our exhaustion with motivational slogans. We push ourselves harder, convinced that discipline and willpower will erase our pain. Yet deep down, a haunting truth lingers: no matter how much you polish the surface, you still feel unfinished. The trap of endless becoming. Watts described this as the obsession with becoming. We are taught that life is a project, that we must constantly work on ourselves, refine ourselves, and improve ourselves until we reach some imagined state of perfection. But life is not a project. Life is a process. It flows, shifts, and unfolds. And you, messy, contradictory, unpredictable you, are part of that process. When you reject who you are in the present moment, you cut yourself off from the very flow of life. Instead of living, you are endlessly preparing to live. Instead of being, you are constantly becoming. And the more you chase after the future self, the further away you drift from the present self. The radical invitation. This is why Watts's message strikes like thunder: stop trying to fix yourself. It sounds reckless at first, even dangerous. If you stop trying, won't you collapse into laziness? Won't you get stuck in your flaws forever? But Watts argued the opposite. The obsession with fixing is the real prison. The constant striving is the true cause of paralysis. You were not born thinking you were broken. You learned it. You were not born in conflict with yourself. You were taught to see your natural impulses as problems. The path to peace, then, is not another technique, another program, another ritual. The path begins when you abandon the illusion that you are defective in the first place. This does not mean that pain, confusion, or trauma magically vanish. It means recognizing that your wholeness does not depend on erasing them. You are not a machine in need of repair. You are a living process, inseparable from life itself. And so, the first step is not improvement. The first step is acceptance. To sit with yourself as you are, no spiritual makeup, no motivational mask, no frantic effort to be someone else. In this simple but revolutionary act, the endless chase begins to quiet. You realize that you do not need to become someone else to deserve peace. You only need to stop running from the person you already are. And that is where our journey truly begins. The war within. Why is it that so many of us live in constant conflict with ourselves? There is a voice inside, harsh, demanding, and relentless, that criticizes everything we do. It says we should be more disciplined, more spiritual, more productive. It measures our worth against an invisible standard. And then, beneath that voice, there is another part of us, weary, anxious, longing only for relief. This part just wants to rest, to breathe, to feel accepted, if only for a moment. It is as though we are two people living in one body, the judge and the judged, the master and the slave. Day after day, the battle continues. We wake with lists of tasks, goals, and ideals, and by nightfall, we feel the sting of failure when we inevitably fall short. Alan Watts saw through this illusion with startling clarity. He asked a simple but radical question: who exactly is this you that demands perfection, and who is the you that must obey? If we are one being, how can there be two selves at war? The manufactured split. From childhood, Western culture teaches us this division. We are told that our raw impulses, anger, desire, sadness, fear, are flaws to be corrected. Schools reward obedience and punish spontaneity. Religion labels certain thoughts as sinful. Society glorifies reason, discipline, and self-control, while portraying emotion and instinct as dangerous. And so, we learn to see ourselves as split into two. A higher self, rational, controlled, spiritualized. A lower self, messy, childish, emotional, in need of correction. We internalize this hierarchy until it becomes the very structure of our minds. The inner critic becomes our master, always watching, always judging. Meanwhile, the natural self, the part of us that simply is treated like an enemy. But Watts argued that this split is not natural. It is not real. It is a cultural invention, reinforced by language, morality, and institutional psychology. It is a fiction, and it is killing us. The futility of fighting yourself. When you try to repress anger, it doesn't disappear, it festers. When you try to silence fear, it grows louder in the shadows. When you try to control every thought, you only end up thinking about control. It is like trying to lift yourself by your own hair, impossible, absurd, and exhausting. This is why so many people feel stuck in cycles of anxiety, guilt, and inadequacy. They believe they are both the problem and the solution, both the sinner and the savior, both the patient and the doctor. The result is a never-ending war where victory is impossible, because the enemy is you. What's compared this to trying to polish a mirror that reflects your own face? The harder you scrub, the more distorted the reflection becomes. The trap of constant judgment. Think about how much of your life is spent under self-surveillance. Every thought is analyzed, was that negative? Every emotion is labeled, should I be feeling this? Every action is compared to an ideal, am I good enough yet? This endless analysis doesn't bring peace. It brings exhaustion. And worse, it distances you from your own nature. Instead of living directly, feeling, breathing, experiencing, you live inside an endless commentary about your life. You don't just feel anger, you judge yourself for feeling anger. You don't just experience sadness, you ask what's wrong with you for being sad. What's warned that this layering of judgment upon experience is the very source of suffering. It is not your emotions themselves that break you down. It is the belief that you shouldn't be having them at all. A whole, not a battle. The truth, what's insisted, is that you are not two selves at war. You are a whole. You are not divided into higher and lower, rational and emotional, sacred and profane. You are one consciousness experiencing the full spectrum of life. Eastern philosophies, especially Zen and Taoism, shaped Watts's view. They reject the Western obsession with duality. In Taoism, yin and yang are not enemies but complements. Darkness defines light, chaos defines order, and both are necessary. Likewise, in you, the so-called flaws and the so-called virtues are not rivals. They are aspects of the same whole. You cannot win a war against yourself. But you can end it, not by defeating one side, but by realizing there was never a real division to begin with. The cost of self-rejection. Until you see this, you will remain trapped in permanent conflict. You will continue to feel inadequate, guilty, and anxious, as though no effort is ever enough. Every time you obey the inner critic, the critic grows stronger. Every time you repress a feeling, that feeling returns with more force. And the cycle repeats endlessly. But the moment you question the division, something shifts. You realize there is no higher self watching over a lower self. There is no judge separate from the judged. There is only you, complex, flawed, contradictory, and whole. And from that realization, the possibility of peace begins to emerge. The war within you is not natural. It was taught, conditioned, and internalized. And like all illusions, it can be seen through. The question now is, if this war is unnecessary, if the division is false, how did we come to believe in it so deeply? The answer lies in the process of conditioning itself, the way society, from birth, trains us to distrust our nature. That is where our journey will take us next. Conditioning and the trap of self-improvement. From the very first breath you take, the process of conditioning begins. Society, like an invisible hand, starts shaping you, not into who you are, but into who it believes you should be. Parents, teachers, religious leaders, and peers all contribute to the same message: you must behave, you must control yourself, you must fit into a mold. Step outside that mold, and you are corrected. Persist, and you are punished. Refuse altogether, and you risk exclusion. Slowly, almost without noticing, you learn that to be loved, accepted, and safe, you must conform. At the root of this conditioning lies a subtle but poisonous idea: you are not enough as you are. There is always some better version of you waiting to be achieved, more disciplined, calmer, more successful, more spiritual. This illusion becomes the driving engine of your life. The birth of the ideal self. Alan Watts saw through this cultural trap with merciless clarity. He observed how even spirituality and psychology, fields meant to heal, often reinforce the same logic. Under the banner of self-knowledge, they whisper the same message: you are broken, and fixing yourself is the path to peace. And so the ideal self is born, a ghost that haunts you. This ghost is everything you wish you could be but never are. It smiles at you from magazine covers, from curated Instagram feeds, from self-help manuals that promise transformation in 30 days. It tells you, if only you try hard enough, you will finally become me. But here is the paradox that Watts revealed: the more you chase the ideal, the further you drift from yourself. Because in striving for what you are not, you reinforce the belief that who you are is unacceptable. The industry of inadequacy. This conditioning doesn't just shape individuals, it fuels entire industries. The personal development market thrives on your dissatisfaction. Every new book, every seminar, every online course carries the same subtext: you are not good enough yet. Coaches tell you to be more disciplined. Psychologists highlight your limiting beliefs. Gurus tell you to vibrate higher and silence your thoughts. While some of these tools can help in moments, Watts pointed out the deeper danger: they subtly train you to reject your present experience. They frame your life as a problem to be solved, rather than a process to be lived. Even meditation, a practice intended to embrace awareness, is often twisted into another self-improvement project: meditate to get rid of thoughts, to get rid of pain, to become enlightened. But what is the hidden message behind that? That your natural mind, with all its noise and turbulence, is unacceptable. That you must change to be worthy. The sophisticated trap. Watts called this cycle a sophisticated trap. You believe you are improving, but in reality, you are running faster and faster on a wheel that never ends. Every time you make progress, the bar shifts. You silence one fear, and another takes its place. You overcome one habit, and a new one rises. The ghost of the ideal self is always just ahead, beckoning you forward, but never letting you arrive. It is like chasing the horizon. No matter how far you travel, it recedes into the distance. And the cruelest part? You blame yourself for not reaching it. You think the failure lies in your weakness, your lack of discipline, your flaws. In truth, the failure lies in the game itself, a game rigged to keep you chasing what does not exist. The paradox of becoming. Western culture glorifies becoming. We are always becoming more productive, more attractive, more spiritual, more enlightened. But Watts insisted that this obsession blinds us to a deeper truth: life is not about becoming, it is about being. You are not an unfinished project. You are not a machine missing parts. You are a living process, dynamic, changing, imperfect, yet whole. By constantly striving to become, you miss the reality of who you already are. This is why so many people, even after years of therapy, yoga, and self-help, still feel incomplete. Because the problem was never their flaws. The problem was the belief that they must be fixed. The courage to stop chasing. To break this cycle requires courage. It means facing the discomfort of being exactly who you are, without running away. It means accepting that your flaws, your sadness, your anger, your confusion are not signs of failure. They are natural expressions of being alive. This doesn't mean resignation or apathy. It means shifting the starting point. True transformation begins not from rejection, but from acceptance. Not from self-hatred, but from self-compassion. When you stop chasing the ghost of the ideal self, something surprising happens. Space opens. Energy that was once spent on resistance becomes available for living. Change no longer feels like a desperate project, it becomes a natural unfolding. The conditioning that told you you are not enough is strong, and its roots run deep. But once you see the trap, you can begin to step outside of it. You can stop running in circles. You can stop waiting for permission to feel whole. And this leads us to the next stage of Watts's insight. Perhaps the things we call problems, our flaws, our emotions, our chaos, were never problems at all. The illusion of control. From the moment you wake up, your mind rushes to organize, predict, and control. You plan your day, you measure your progress, you monitor your emotions like a supervisor ticking boxes. You remind yourself of the rules: stay calm, stay positive, stay focused. Beneath it all lies one unspoken belief: if you control enough, you will finally feel safe. But Alan Watts shattered this illusion with a simple truth: control is the great delusion of the modern mind. The obsession with mastery. Western culture glorifies mastery. We are told to master our thoughts, master our emotions, master our habits. Productivity systems teach us to hack every hour. Spiritual systems promise freedom if only we can tame the restless mind. Even therapy can become another attempt to manage the chaos of being human. And yet, the more we try to control, the more restless we feel. The more rules we impose on ourselves, the more anxiety brews beneath the surface. The mind promises peace if we can only get it together, but the peace never comes. Why? Because control is built on fear. The fear that life is too wild, too unpredictable, too messy to be trusted. Life already knows how to live. Watts reminded us of something we overlook: your body is already doing everything essential without you. Your heart beats, your lungs expand, your eyes adjust to light, your cells repair themselves, all without your conscious command. You are not the driver of this miracle. You are the miracle. Life does not need your control. It is already flowing through you. Just as the universe knows how to form stars and rivers, your organism knows how to breathe, feel, and exist. But the ego, anxious to be in charge, insists on grabbing the wheel. It pretends it is the captain of the ship, when in truth, the ship was sailing perfectly long before the captain appeared. This is why Watts called the arrogance of control a kind of madness. It is the mind mistaking itself for the whole of life. The prison of overthinking. When the mind takes over as master, it turns everything into a problem. Natural waves of emotion are labeled as flaws. A moment of sadness becomes weakness. A surge of fear becomes failure. Instead of allowing feelings to rise and fall like tides, the mind tries to regulate them into submission. But the harder you clamp down, the more tension you create. Trying to stop your thoughts is like trying to halt a river with your hands. Trying to silence fear is like pressing down on a spring: the more you push, the stronger it rebounds. This is why so many people, even with all their planning and self-discipline, feel exhausted. They are not living life. They are managing it like a never-ending project. The wisdom of letting go. Watts offered a radical alternative: let life breathe. Let the moment unfold without demanding that it conform to your control. This is not passivity or laziness. It is presence. It is action rooted in awareness, not compulsion. When you surrender to the flow of life, you discover something startling. The need for control begins to dissolve on its own. You realize you don't need to silence your mind to find peace. You don't need to fix your emotions to deserve love. You don't need to improve every flaw to be worthy. Instead, peace emerges when you stop fighting what already is. Think of how water moves around a rock in a river. It doesn't resist, it doesn't complain, it doesn't try to change the rock. It flows around it effortlessly. That is the wisdom of surrender. The paradox of surrender. And yet, even surrender becomes a trick of the mind. Many people turn it into another project. Now I will practice acceptance. Now I will strive to stop striving. But what's warned that the very effort to let go can itself become a new form of control. This is why surrender requires courage. It means abandoning the fantasy of security and opening to the rawness of life as it comes. Joy, pain, chaos, silence, beauty, all of it belongs. To surrender is to trust that the same intelligence that makes the stars shine and your lungs breathe also knows how to live through you. It is stepping aside, allowing the river to carry you, instead of thrashing against the current. Freedom beyond control. Control promises safety, but it delivers anxiety. Surrender feels terrifying, but it delivers freedom. The shift happens the moment you see clearly that control was never real in the first place. You cannot command the tides. You cannot schedule your emotions. You cannot guarantee tomorrow. And yet, in the absence of control, life still moves. The sun rises, the body breathes, the world turns. When you stop resisting this truth, you begin to live from a deeper intelligence, the wisdom of the body, the rhythm of nature, the flow of now. And so, what invites us into a paradox? The deepest transformation does not come from effort, control, or self-improvement. It happens precisely when we stop trying to transform ourselves. When we abandon the project of perfection, something unexpected emerges, life itself. And this takes us to the final step in our journey, the most liberating truth of all: you were never broken, and there was never anything to fix. The courage of acceptance. For most of our lives, we are told that growth requires striving. Work harder, dig deeper, improve yourself endlessly. But Alan Watts offers a paradox so startling it feels almost dangerous to say aloud: true transformation happens only when you stop trying to change. At first, this sounds absurd. How can giving up lead to growth? How can surrender create strength? Isn't acceptance just another word for passivity? But Watts saw clearly that the frantic project of fixing yourself is not the path to peace, it is the very source of your suffering. The law of reverse effort. Watts described something he called the law of reverse effort. The more you try to float in water, the more you sink. The more you force yourself to fall asleep, the more awake you become. In the same way, the more you try to control life, to discipline emotions, to perfect yourself, the more restless and disconnected you feel. This does not mean you should collapse into apathy. It means the starting point of transformation must change. Growth that begins in self-hatred or rejection only breeds more resistance. It is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline: the more effort you pour in, the more the flames rise. But when you shift the ground, when you begin from radical acceptance instead of self-denial, something new becomes possible. The power of radical acceptance. Acceptance is not resignation. It does not mean romanticizing pain or refusing to evolve. It means finally stopping the endless war with yourself. It means letting anger be anger, fear be fear, sadness be sadness, without immediately judging them as mistakes to be fixed. When you stop fighting your emotions, they lose their grip. Anger, when allowed to move through you, completes its cycle and fades. Fear, when not resisted, rises and falls like a tide. Sadness, when given space, transforms into tenderness. This is the quiet miracle of acceptance. What once felt unbearable becomes simply part of the flow of being alive. Flaws as expressions of life. For Watts, the greatest shift was this: perhaps the things you call flaws were never flaws at all. They are not obstacles to your evolution, but expressions of life itself. Think of a crooked tree growing in the forest. No one says it is broken. Think of a cloud shifting shape in the sky. No one says it is wrong. Think of a river curving through the land. No one rushes to straighten it. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we demand straight lines, balance, perfection. We forget that we too are part of nature, and nature is not linear. It bends, it twists, it flows. What you call a defect may simply be life showing up in its raw, authentic form. Transformation without effort. When you stop trying to transform yourself, transformation begins to happen on its own. Not as a project, not as a goal, but as a natural unfolding. Just as bamboo grows without anyone pulling it upward, your being knows how to evolve when given space. Space is the key. Not more effort, not more control, but space. Space for silence. Space for confusion. Space for the unknown. In that openness, change ceases to be something you chase. It becomes something that arises from within, like breath, like sunlight breaking through clouds. The courage to drop the mask. But acceptance requires courage, perhaps the deepest courage of all. It means facing the mirror and saying, I don't know who I am, and that's okay. It means letting go of the masks you've worn, the roles you've played, the scripts you've memorized. It means risking the rawness of being seen as you are, without polish, without disguise. Control promises you safety. But acceptance gives you freedom. Freedom to be messy, to be imperfect, to be alive without apology. And that freedom is not small. It is revolutionary. In a culture built on constant self-surveillance, to stop fixing yourself is an act of rebellion. To declare, I was never broken, is to break the spell that has kept you running in circles. You were never broken. This is the disconcerting truth Watts leaves us with: you were never broken. Your pain is not evidence of defect, but proof of aliveness. Your doubts, your impulses, your fears, none of them make you less human. They make you human, full stop. The real source of suffering is not these states themselves, but the belief that you shouldn't have them. The shame of being lost. The exhaustion of pretending to be fixed. The endless chase after a ghost of perfection. Letting go of this chase is not giving up on life. It is returning to life. It is breathing without judgment, feeling without resistance, existing without needing to prove. The most revolutionary gesture. So stop. Stop listening to the voice that says you must improve before you are worthy. Stop waiting for the day when you will finally be whole. Life never demanded that you be anything other than what you already are. The most revolutionary act is not to strive, but to accept. Not to fight, but to trust. Not to become, but to simply be. And when you do, you may find that the transformation you sought was never in the fixing. It was always in the freedom of allowing yourself to exist, fully, messily, completely, as the living process that you are.